What is up, guys? Today we're going to be jamming into some Oscilio with Verdance. Typically in this matchup, I like to play it kind of very tempo focused, very much just trying to kind of get maximum value out of all our cards. I think the big thing about Oscilio is that they actually really struggle to close games if they get too late. We're actually going to go down on some of our D-reacts in this matchup. Um, and I would have liked to cut one more card, but that's okay. Typically, our effects like CNC and Plowlander are particularly valuable in this matchup because if we time them right, we can snag their Godina flashes, etc., and send them to the bottom of deck, or just destroy them, or just buy a turn of tempo because our opponent has to give us their hand. I like Balance of Justice in this matchup, particularly for our opponent's combo turn, where we could just block an extra 3 or 4 that way. And I find we can get a lot of value that way. So here we're probably just going to be discarding this Roots of the Forest and swinging a CNC. This is kind of the opposite of the Fang game that we played earlier. Whereas in that matchup we're trying to deny opponents value by using our physical. In this matchup we're going to be ooh, denying our opponent value on uh, the arcane value, but also denying the value that comes from their effects that pitch well. Um, so essentially, we're going to punish them for their cards not blocking very well and generate value that way. Um, just got the fruits here. This game can go quite short, so I'd actually rather just pitch away the Roses and swing the CNC here. Of course, we can get blown out by things like channel lightning value in Arsenal here, but just using our CNCs and chancing that we get them in the right places can just generate so much value that it's just worth doing. So yeah. So here we're going to fire this for 6. Opponent's going to say no blocks, so hoping that this isn't something super impactful. Sorry, the cat's being a bit of a terror. Let's just put it down over there. Yep, so our opponents lose their blink from Arsenal. So we just got essentially whatever a blink is worth plus a CNC worth. Here we're going to be able to throw the Felling of the Crown, which is really good because it keeps our opponent's hand small, and we can block with the Emeritus Scalding and discard the fruits. Opponent's going to have an Embodiment Lightning plus 4 cards, so I imagine they're going to do some fairly efficient plays here. Yep, so we're just going to block with the Emeritus Scalding here, because I'd rather just get the 3 value guaranteed. Opponent has the CLV, which is a little unfortunate, but not the end of the world. Our opponent still has to pitch a card for it, which is perfectly fine here. Opponent's going to Oscilio away something. Yep, makes sense. They're just going to be digging for that combo piece, whereas we're just going to be making sure that we keep our life total pretty high. We typically want to keep it above 35 if we can, and then just throwing attacks when we can. Yep. Our Balance of Justice is online, so we might actually take advantage of that this turn. I'm just going to block... Why is our Balance online? I don't think it is. Trying to work out what they drew the extra card from. Just gonna block 4 here, and then we're gonna crack the balance, and then we either like block with an extra card, or yep, our opponent lets combat resolve. I think we're still gonna draw the balance here, just because it's like pretty rare that our opponent gives us opportunities to actually use the balance. So let's just crack it, see what we find. Yep, so now we're actually going to play the Heartbeat to kind of hold into the CNC, which is really good for us here. So we essentially just got an extra 3 value out of our thing. Our Balance of Justice, so we're going to go to 44 for the CNC. Yep, our opponent just plays a Sigil out on our turn, which is actually perfectly fine for us here, because it means, one, now we know about this like a little bit earlier. It's one less card that we have to play around that could be another CLV, and we also now know that we really want to prioritize physical, which we already wanted to do in this game. Opponents definitely got a somersault here because they are blocking with their gun and a flash, which they would never normally do, so they're going to go damage step and then they'll play it. But their hand is actually quite awkward, so this is pretty good for us. So now it's just about building up a life advantage and making sure our opponent stays low. So we're going to Arsenal this felling here. We drew a sigil, which is pretty good for us because it's a good way to clear hand. So I'm pretty sure we're going to block 2 cards on whatever this is. Because our opponent probably has Flittering Charge plus an instant plus Garden Flash. So if we just block this out, our opponent's going to be in a pretty awkward spot. Light the Leaves notably pretty good to stop Mind Warps and stuff. It does come up occasionally. We might actually just reconsider our blocks here, because we want to get this Earth card into graveyard, so I think we want to block with the Heartbeat instead. Lightning Press is probably the worst card that could happen for us here, but we're going to go to 47 off the Sigil, and then we're going to throw the Felling and strip a card from our opponent. So we're just buying ourselves more time. And we're also going to start generating our Illuvium value eventually. Yep, so our opponent's going to ping us for 1, and then Volza to get some free value. We're just going to take this because we're just going to gain it back soon anyway, and unless our opponent draws like an instant here, that would be pretty annoying for us. Oop, sorry, someone's saying hello. Yeah, so we're just going to leave this alone. Our opponent's going to swing the God in a Flash, which means they did draw the instant, unfortunately, so rough top deck for us off the top, but not the end of the world, because we're still going to be at that above 35 life threshold. Might just refresh the page, because I think Talshar's doing that thing again. Yeah, we're just going to take 4 here, our opponent's going to bounce something. Yeah, Sigil of Brilliance is probably the card we did not want to see there. There's an argument we should just not attack our opponent. So if we don't attack our opponent, they can't Flash of Brilliance back the Sigil of Brilliance. So I think we might actually just be Sigil of Brilliancing and passing. Sigil of Solacing and passing, because we just don't want to give them the opportunity to full combo with like Flash of Brilliance plus Sigil of Brilliance. So let's not give them the space to do that. Let's just go back up to 40. It's a little sad that we lost the value there, but not the end of the world. So we're just going to Sigil, and then pass. That might look kind of weird to you guys, but I think it's actually just perfectly fine here. So we're just going to leave that alone. Yep, our opponent's going to do that. So our opponent's still going to have that 5 card hand plus Gunrunner Flash. But we've got a fairly good blocking hand if they decide to go for it this turn. Opponent's just going to throw a Burn Bear. That's pretty good for us actually. Because we're just going to AB it, Pulsing Ether. We're actually going to have the second counter so we can get a free Waning Moon in. So our opponent's going to get stuck going to a low life total. And it looks like they're having to pitch away a good chunk of their hand too. Must just be a very awkward one to line up with the combo. So we'll pitch the full 4 here, because we're not going to have to pitch for the Waning Moon anyway. So we're going to Pulsing Ether life both modes. And then we're going to Waning Moon afterwards. So we're going to go back to 39, our opponent's going to go to like 23. And we're not going to give them the opportunity to get value off of their... Oh, our opponent's going to get the Embodiment of Lightning, which isn't good for us, but we kind of have to clear it at some point, because otherwise we just kind of have to deal with it the whole game. and it might line up for them that they like throw a flittering charge or something, so it ends up being like kind of the same value. An opponent chose to AB there, which is interesting. But they pitched away a Sigil of Brilliance, which is really good because now there's only one left in the relevant portion of the deck. Opponent's gone to 26, so now we can actually start throwing some pretty big haymakers. Oh, let's go down then, lady. Yep, so opponent comes in with Gun and a Flash. We're actually just going to pass here, because we want to... They're going to want to take embodiment from their embodiment of lightning, so we want to root down Carapace. And decompose if they'll let us. And if they don't, then they either crack Lightning Greaves and then they lost an action point, or they just kind of get stuck because they lose go again if they bounce at this step. Cool, so we stay at 39. Opponent Sigil of Solaces, which seems pretty good in this matchup actually, because it makes it hard for us to not interact without throwing physical. So this is actually really good for us here, because our opponent's going to do this, but then we're going to pitch these last two cards for Plow Under. And then we're going to plow our opponent's Gone in a Flash, which I think is what this extra card is. And then we can get some tempo back to start throwing the Plow Unders every turn. I think that might be... yeah, this must be Gone in a Flash because of that. So it's actually okay that our opponent Flash Brilliance is here, because we're probably taking that Gone in a Flash. And if we don't, they still only have 4 cards to combo with, so it's probably pretty inefficient for them to do it. We're just going to get rid of that Pulsing Ether. We are unfortunately going to lose our Felling here, which kind of sucks. But there's 2 more left in the deck, so hopefully we just dig back to 1 pretty quickly. Opponent's probably just going to say no blocks to this, or they're going to just try and get the value from this, because they know it's the last one that they can get value out of. Sure. The other big thing is our, we want to kind of free up Arsenal for compliance anyway. Because having that on our opponent's combo turn is like pretty huge. Opponent blocked with Lightning Greaves, so they're just going to go for it here, so we're just going to be full blocking this turn. So yeah, we're just going to pass over now. I think either they just drew like the last Gone in a Flash off the top, or we're good, I think. I'm going to Mind Warp. I presume they're going to play some spells in response to amp this. Cosmos. We're going to let that resolve. Opponent's going to undo. I think there was something fairly inefficient with what they were doing. So they're going to Mind Warp. I presume they're going to CLV in response, pitch to Volzar, play some spells? I think that's what I'm seeing happen. And then we're going to play a Felling of the Crown, basically. Yep. So opponent draws... actually... I think if we just AB this with the sink below, it's actually pretty good, because then this can't go to a big... This can only go to maximum 5, and we have the blue to AB it. Yep, so opponent Voltars, but then we're just going to AB this. They're going to keep the CLV and the Sigil of Brilliance, but then they're going to... wait. So, Sigil of Brilliance, yes. They Volzar, yep. And notably, our opponent is choosing to keep the CLV around by pitching the, oh, for fuck's sake. So our opponent's going to Volta, Sigil of Brilliance. This pot's look good. Yep, and then we're just going to press space once, AB3, go back to our turn, Felling for 8. Might have to refresh here. I think Talashar's doing that thing where it just decides to not really do stuff. There we go. Opponent gets the CLV trigger here, which is like kind of fine because they don't have God Owner Flashes close to the top of deck. And if they try to second cycle, we're just going to get enough time to put them super low and then just Storm Striders kill them by finding Light Up the Leaves or a Burn Bear, and just play out all of our Fellings and Plowlanders and stuff like that and just make it very, very hard for them. We're still on 33, which is pretty high, but like not as high as I really want to be in this matchup. I would much rather be above 35. We're doing all three of these because we want to get online, so we're going to go to 8 Decompose. And our opponent's going to have to put a card on the bottom. Opponent presented 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, I think, yeah. It'll be interesting to see if they block this out. Curious about how many payoff cards they've kind of used so far. I think they bought it in the Burn Bears, which is interesting. So obviously that's a good way to kind of get us low before that combo turn. So it'll be interesting to see if this is like a turn of like Burn Bear plus something. So opponent Sigil of Ethers. And they're playing the Sigil of Brilliance. Yeah, so they go to 3. They blast to Oblivion. We're just going to block 3 here, I think. They're going to lead the E-Strike because we might need to AB here. Opponent is going to blast, bounce the Sigil of Ether, I imagine. I think we're just going to AB all this and then throw the E-Strike for 5 drawing a card. Why is this coming in for 3? I think I might have missed something though. We are just going to AB it. And then we'll AB this, and I'm just going to pitch the E-Strike away. Because this kind of stops our opponent from doing anything really, and just means they've just burned some more cards from deck. And we'll just get this Burn Bear into Arsenal for the Storm Striders later. Because we're only like felling away really. Felling and like something else. Opponent plays the Sigil back out, which is perfectly fine with us, and now the CLV goes, which is also pretty good for us. Opponent's going to have a big hand, but unless they have a Goblin Flash or something, we're not particularly scared. Ideally, we could draw a third Felling this next turn cycle, because we're a little bit behind on that. Not the end of the world. Yep, so opponent's going to crack. We're going to AB this. I think this might be a bit of a small combo turn where they use stuff like Blast to Oblivion to repeatedly bounce things. I don't know if this is their full turn. Doesn't seem like it. Yep, so this is the turn they're going for it. This is where we kind of go low. Yep, opponent's going to swing this. We're going to block for 3 so that we get maximum value out of blocking with this. Yep, so they're going to Electrostatic, bounce that. Ether Bindings is going to trigger. We're going to take 1, go to 31. Still got this 2 AB floating. Opponent's got 2 action points. Be interesting. I think they play the Goblin of Flash now if they have it. Opponent Oscilios, which is interesting. Yeah, so they do have the Goblin of Flash. So we're going to block 6 here, because there's not really much we can do to interact with this. Presumably, if they have 2 more instants, they can go 4, 4, big spell for a lot, which we can maybe 2. Perfectly fine. Our opponent's, we're gonna go down to like, I think 15 to 10 this turn, but our opponent's gonna be still at 21, which is perfectly fine. Because of the Burn Bear and Arsenal, we know that we can fire off 9 Arcane, so our opponent's functionally at 12. So we're essentially just going to be playing hands to try and get our opponent down to 12 before they can kill us. Not quite sure what our opponent is doing. Hmm. Just gonna refresh the page here. Yeah. Can you chill out? Sorry, the cat's gone a bit combative there. We're gonna take the 2 from this current funnel. This is one of the better cards that we could have seen, honestly. Yep, we take 4 here. And once we get through this turn, it's really not that much stress, because it just means that our opponent can't combo again, because obviously Lightning Greaves is a one-time use. So we're actually just gonna go to 20 here, and our opponent doesn't have a spell, so we're like pretty good here. So then we're just gonna pass our turn. Now our opponent's got to kill us from 20, and they're at 24, so this is going to be pretty difficult for them. Oh. So we're probably just trying to AB here and then play the Light Up the Leaves. These Sigil of Solaces, putting them a little bit higher, have actually made the game go quite a bit longer than we would prefer normally. If their turn isn't particularly powerful, we could even see throwing the E-Strike for 5 would go again into the Light Up the Leaves for 6, and then just Alluvianing to Waning Moon, so we'd get 13 damage across, our opponent goes to 11. Still quite, like, lower than we really want to be when we go for it. So we're just going to block like this, wait for our opponent to do something. Opponent's going to Comet Storm. So this is going to be Comet Storm for 7, I think. So we might actually just take this turn off, because this is one of the better turns of damage they've got. So we're going to discard the Mental Block, and then discard the Light Up the Leaves, choosing the Comet Storm as the target. So our opponent's only going to deal 1 damage to us here, which is pretty fine. It's a little sad we're not going to get our Ponder token or get the 4th counter on Alluvian, but it's better to just wait until our opponent has an off turn, which now that their Lightning Greaves and stuff is gone is like very, very possible. So we just pass back, we got another Light Up the Leaves plus a Mental Block, and then a Fruits. I think we're going to pitch the Fruits here to stop this Arcane, and just make sure we get that 4th counter on Alluvian. So opponents coming in with this Comet Storm. We're actually just going to AB it for 1. And then they're going to throw the Comet Storm. We're going to we're just going to AB this. There's not really a reason to take card out of deck, so I'd rather just deal 6 Arcane back to them, to be honest, because we know our Fellings are coming up pretty shortly. And as soon as the Fellings come out, the game just kind of ends. So we're going to do this, Waning Moon. Opponent's going to go to 16, and then we're going to try and play a Felling next turn. If we draw it, opponent's going to go to like 8, and then they're just going to die. Fortunately, we didn't draw it, but we did get the Sigil of Solace, which is kind of nice. I'm going to say no block here, and then just Rootbound Carapace with no Decompose, because there's no reason to. Well, I suppose the reason to is if they had a Lightning Press here, but they don't seem to, so we'll just leave this. We are just going to block these effects, because I don't think there's a reason to give our opponent the chance to get there. We're going to hold the Sigil of Solace for our turn as well. So we'll just block 3 here. We'll go to our turn, Sigil, gain 1 life, deal 1, pass back. So we're just buying time for us to get to our Gone in a Flash, Felling of the Crown, and our opponent's just kind of stuck in the water because we're out the combo their turns kind of mid. I think in hindsight, there was very good reason for our opponent to wait until they could get a bot combo off, because now we're just kind of spinning wheels, but like our wheels are like Felling of the Crowns, and it's like Yellow Blast of Oblivion with conditional go again. Yep. Mm. And is opponent just passing here? Yeah. So we'll Sigil, deal 1 Arcane to them, they'll go to 15. Again, we're still just trying to get them down to that last bit of range. We drew a Burn Bear this time, which is pretty good for us, because if we just keep 3 cards, we can Burn Bear, put them to 7, and then just untap Burn Bear again. We can also just take like a safe line here, where we just like deal 6 Arcane to them. And just like Waning Moon and just wait for the AB. That's like also a pretty reasonable line. So this is probably just this into... I think they have 1 Mind Warp left, but I think they pitched one, and I don't think they're on second cycle yet. So I'm actually just going to let this go and see what happens. Because I would rather just fire off that turn and get ahead that way. Yep, so our opponent has a Mind Warp, but this is going to be coming in for... So Vaults amps 3, so we can just AB this. So we don't even need to play like Lions out. So now we're just going to Burn Bear, Waning Moon, untap, do it again. Oscilio really kind of gets restricted in this way in Wizard Mirrors, where like it can't actually play that much AB because of the fact that it needs so many specific pieces to actually make the combo work. You need Flash of Brilliance, you need Lightning Greaves, and you need the Tunic. So if you can kind of exploit that by just like dealing enough arcane damage to them, they get put in some pretty awkward spots. And then we're just going to Waning Moon again. Opponent's going to go to 8. So something we do have to... our opponent has no AB here, so we really are just drawing like enough pitch value to kill them, essentially. We're kind of praying they don't hit the Sigil of Solace here. I think they're out. Yeah, they're out of Sigil of Solaces, so now we're just going to wait until they do enough game actions for us to just go Burn Bear plus Waning Moon. And we'll amp the Burn Bear with Arcane Twining to deal 1 more arcane damage with it. Yep, so while this Tunic's on the stack, we'll pitch this. Burn Bear, pitching the Rootbound Carapace. Amp, Alluvion. Good game. Yeah, so that's exactly how this game typically goes. We kind of just... It went a little bit longer than it normally does because our opponent was on the Sigil of Solaces, which made it much harder for us to kill them. We also were like putting that Felling on the bottom and then like having the other one be so far down kind of also made the matchup go quite short. Quite long, I mean. Like normally you just throw a Felling or your opponent just kind of has to take 8 and then it just like shortens the game by a good mile. Because they had the Solaces and were like lengthening it out. Plus they were like blocking pretty aggressively. The game went way longer than it normally does, but even still at 9 life, it's pretty hard for our opponent to kill us at this point. Because we're on AB4. They have the Comet Storm, Shock, and like a Glyph Overlay, but the problem is they also like, after the combo turn, they like kind of run out of enough instants to actually like amp enough to kill us. Like if we look at that deck, they've only got the Sigil of Lightning, the Sigil of Brilliance, the Comet Storm Shock itself, and like a Blink. They do have the Burn Bears, but like I typically find that these aren't super relevant because we can just kill them before they have time to resolve all their Burn Bears in the late game. And we do have things like Mental Block to keep them. I think you saw me pitch this for AB3 instead of making a Ponder at one point. And the point of that is just to keep it in deck so that we can AB4 and then mental block, make a ponder. And in those late game scenarios, that's pretty backbreaking for our opponent. Arcane Compliance didn't come up much in this matchup, but essentially when our opponent does that combo turn, they normally end with like a Mind Warp or something. And if they do, or if it's a Combo Storm Shock or something like that, we can just respond with the Arcane Compliance and our opponent loses all the amp value from Voltar. I will say Voltar is like the primary engine of Oscilio, and that kind of is like the main thing that we're fighting against in this matchup, is like battling against the amp effect, particularly for stuff like Mind Warp, which came up several times during that game, where just like stopping the Mind Warp just meant like the whole game was so easy for us because we had the extra AB and stuff. So yeah, I think that's how you beat Oscilio with Verdance.